Hello, I'm Janna, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. I am so excited to be starting the Halloween making season with a feature of some of the Tim Holtz Idea-ology elements, and we're going to be creating with the book. I am so excited to see all of these wonderful substrates, and I've been hanging on to these, waiting to make our very own grimoire. And you can also look forward to a whole set of spooky Halloween videos coming up. We're going to be doing a series of spooky, crafty October videos. More information to follow. If you'd like to see the materials we're going to be using here today, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Today, we're going to be starting a new series. We are into the Halloween making season, so we're going to be making a fairly large-scale project and creating a grimoire. Now, to do that, I get to pull in the booklet folio. I stocked up on these when they were first released, thinking immediately that I wanted to do a Halloween project with them. But we're not using one, we're going to need two because this book is going to be thick. So these are going to be our foundations, and today we're going to be making the initial foundation for the grimoire. Then we're going to deep dive and have fun making all the spooky pages. So to start, we need to make this look like a book. And to do that, I have got the distress paper that is called cracked leather, and this has amazing texture, but we've got to bring out that texture even more. So to do that, we're going to be pulling in some distress spray stains, some distress crayons, and a dash of resist spray. There was a fantastic Tim Holtz demo a while ago where he showed how to make this really cool faux leathery look using resist spray. So I'm going to give them my own twist and try to get a old leather type look. So first, let's go ahead, spritz our paper, and add our colors. So for colors today, our first two are going to be Vintage Photo and Walnut Stain, and these are distress sprays. So let's go ahead and spritz. After I get these blended, that we will go in with some oxide as well. But at the moment, I'm just concerned of getting our foundation down. Ooh, that is going to look good. Let's move that around a little bit with some water. There we go. It's going to be pretty messy. We're going to have some overflow, but I want this to wick and move. There we go. And we'll be able to bring even more of this great texture out later when we go in with some distress crayon to do some highlighting. Okay, that is definitely looking like old cracked leather. I'm liking that quite a bit. But you know what? I want something even darker. I want a dash of scorched timber as well. Ooh, perfect. I'm hoping I'll get some age spots out of this. Okay, so I'm going to put this on fast forward. We're going to do some drying and some more spritzing, and then we'll see where we end up. Okay, here is the finished background. We have got a combination of distress oxide, we've got some distress sprays, and we've got all sorts of wonderful water droplets. But the thing is, we want to bring out that cracked leather look. So we're going to be going in with some distress crayon. We're going to be using some antique linen. So we're going to take this and we're just going to crank that up, and we're going to scribble this down and see about highlighting all those wonderful crackly bits. So taking that, rubbing that all around. I'm going to need a little bit of water to get that really moving. There we go. Ooh, now I'm starting to see some of that detail pop back in. Very good. So I'm just going to add that in, smush that out, and then we'll move on to the next step. That is definitely going to look really good. I just love how that automatically starts popping up all of the little details on here. That is pretty neat. Okay, so I've just got some water off to the side, and I'm using that to press the crayon into the paper so that we don't really have any scribbly bits. We just are getting the highlight of the texture. Okay, and we'll just keep working our way around. Good. So the next step is going to be to bring in the Distress Resist, and that is going to give us a really interesting look. So right now, just finishing up the crayon, scribbling that out. Ooh, that's going to look good. And just smooshing that in. We're going to make this look really old, really distressed. This is going to make such a fantastic book cover. I can't wait. All right, pushing that right in. There we go. Yeah, that cracked leather is really starting to show up. Let's see here. Where do I need a little bit more? Maybe over here. Ooh, we're definitely plowing through this antique linen crayon. That is definitely getting some use today. That's a good thing. We want to use our art supplies. Okay. There. I think we're just about good. All right, happy with that. Now on to the resist spray. So for the resist, I am using my craft mat. Normally I'd recommend using a splat box, but this is not going to fit into my splat box too well. But if we're very quick, I should be able to clean up any overflow on the resist spray without too much issue. I'm going to try this bottle first. Oh, that isn't behaving. Okay, not a problem. Thank goodness these are replaceable. So I'm just going to get rid of this. And I have a backup sprayer right here. And we're going to start spraying. And we're going to be very generous with our spray. Because we want this completely covered. All right, I would call that covered. Now, I'm going to immediately take this with me, and I need to rinse this out with some hot water to unclog the sprayer, because if we leave this, it's going to do weird things, and then I'll end up with a jam sprayer. Tip that I learned during a Tim Holtz Live, always, always, always wash your sprayer after using Distress Resist. All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, let's take a closer look. That is good, but we're not done yet. We are going to be crumpling this up and then adding a slight layer of archival ink to this. But we want to get that really beat up look on this. So we're going to start smushing it out. The main thing is I don't want to tear this, but I do want to crumple. So just going to do what we can here. Keep it more crumpled. Oh, I've got a small tear here, but not a big deal. Okay. So I do want to keep working this a bit more. I'd like to get a bit more texture going. Because after, I'm going to rub a bit of archival black soot on this to try to bring out some of those wrinkles. So we want this book to look really old. Something like that. Maybe something even take a bite out of or something. I don't know. But we're getting there. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Oh, I've got a little tear that's really bugging me. Let's see, I can crunch that up. There we go, that's slightly better. All right, now I'm just going to take this, and we're going to run that over the top. Ooh, I like that. Cool. And now I'm just going to flip that over and just flatten this out a bit. All right. Great. So now we've got really, really beat up looking leather. I love that. With our cracked leather cover completed, it's now time to start working on the innards of the book. So we're going to be pulling in our substrate. Now, we're not just using one, we're using two of the booklets. So what you get on the inside. After you open the package, you will find that you get a piece of string, some ribbon, and then you have the book cover itself with some grommets in it, and you'll also find two signatures. Now, I'm going to need more than two signatures, so we're going to be going into the second package to grab another signature. So let's open up that second package and retrieve that second signature. We're going to set the other supplies aside, and I will definitely be using them later for another project. But for now, we only need the 3 signatures. Okay, so I'm just trying to tuck everything back in, and we'll carefully put those things off to the side. Now, let's gather up our 3 signatures. The first thing that we're going to need to check is that these are going to fit into the spine of our book cover. So I'm just going to stack them together, and we're going to line them up and make sure that there's going to be enough room for all 3. All right. There we go. Just checking that. And yes, we should be okay for 3 signatures. That definitely looks pretty good. So the next thing that we're going to do is start the bookbinding process. We're going to set the cover aside for the time being, and we're going to be working with the 3 signatures. For bookbinding, we're going to be working with a technique known as Copic stitching. This is one of my favorite bookbinding techniques, and I learned this technique from the channel Sea Lemon, who does amazing demonstrations for bookbinding. Now, we're going to be pulling in a Sharpie, and we're going to be marking out the spots on the spines where I'm going to be puncturing a hole. This is going to give us a spot to thread our string through each of the signatures and allow us to bind these together neatly. I'm doing approximately 3/4 of an inch for each of the marks. This time I'm just eyeballing it, but you could definitely use a ruler if you'd like to know your exact measurements. Now we're going to take the Sizzix die pick tool and we're going to enlarge these holes. The books already have some perforated holes in the back from where sewing was originally stitched to put the pages together, but I need these holes to be bigger so that we can feed through a larger string to form the spine of our book. The Sizzix die pick tool works perfectly for this, though if you wanted to, you could also use an awl, which would give you equally good results. So that's number 1. Now we'll just set that aside. I'm just double checking that I've got all the holes going in the same direction. And we're just going to go through and poke holes in the next one. I'm holding the signature by the middle and then pushing the pick through. There we go. So that's 2 of them ready. Now let's go on to our 3rd. These go through pretty easily since there's already some holes there, and I'm really just enlarging the space so that the needle and thread can easily pass through. All right, and 1 more hole. Good. So we have our 3 signatures ready to be stitched. Now, we're going to be taking this string. I think we can use this. It is a bit chunkier than what I would normally use for bookbinding, but since we have it, we might as well use it. Now, the next thing I'm going to need is a needle, and I like to use the larger needles because one, they're easier to thread, and two, it makes it easier to push through. So we're going to start by doing a basic under over stitch. We're going down to the top and up through the bottom. And this is going to be our under over stitch. And I'm just going to go all the way down until we get to the end of the signature. I'm also hanging onto the tail just in case, so I don't accidentally pull it through. Okay, now that we have done all of the under over, I'm going to be reversing the stitch. That's going to look like going the opposite direction. You can see that half of the spaces have a thread going through it and the other half don't. We're going to go backwards and cover up those empty spaces. So as you can see, we just came up. Now we're going to go down, but going from right to left. Now the one thing to be really careful of is don't spear your thread. That will lead to all sorts of messes. So try to sneak the needle through the hole next to the thread and not through it. We're just going to go nice and slow and carefully look at our needle placement before we start pulling the thread through. Okay. There we go. So we're just repeating that over under stitch going in the opposite direction. Now, we only use the stitch for the first signature because we're going to use the larger stitches as a hook point to attach our other signatures. This is going to make more sense when we add the second one. All right, so we're back to the beginning. Now I'm just going to do a basic overhand knot, and we're going to do that twice, like the same type that you'd use to tie your shoelaces. There we go, and we'll tie that off. Great. Now we can add the second signature. So we're going to go through this next one together for a few stitches, and then I'll put it on fast forward. So I'm holding these together, cover to cover, and I'm sticking my hand through the middle of the second one. So we're going to go through the first hole, we're going to pull the thread all the way through, and we're going to go up through the second hole. Now, this is the tricky part. We go under one of the stitches on the first layer of signature, and we're going to pull the thread all the way through. Now, I'm going to go under the other side of the thread, and this is creating a little hook that is going to catch and hold our signatures together. And then we go back through the same hole that we stitched through. So now we're going down and creating a little hook by going under the larger threads. We'll repeat that process for both of the signatures. Okay, let's check out our stitching, and there we go. This is Copic binding stitching. It's my absolute favorite. I find it's very, very durable, and I love the look because it's so discreet and you can hide it with bookbinding tape after the fact. So speaking of bookbinding tape, we're going to be pulling in some linen tape. Now, this is typically called hinge tape if you were to look it up online. And we're just going to take that and we're going to measure it out to fit our spine, and then we're going to peel the backing off. We're going to be putting this over the spine of the book, and this is just going to help reinforce that spine and hold everything together. So we're just going to smooth that down, and then we'll fold the edges down as well. There we go. Now, don't worry about the tape. This is actually going to get covered up when we add in the signature to the spine of the book. I'm just going to press this down because the tape is going to fit very snugly around all of that stitching. Okay, and we're just going to rub the spine on the table, make sure everything's nice and even. There we go. So the next part is going to be to attach this into the book. And I've got a little bit of trimming to do. Not a big deal. We'll just take our little snips and trim. So now we have the signatures. The next thing is to get this into the spine. There's several ways that we could do this. I could go in and create end pages, or we could even go in with a little bit more tape. I'm opting for the tape option today. This is going to be slightly quicker, and I think it's going to give us a little bit more flexibility when it comes to opening and closing this book. Since it's such a small book, I'd rather have the flexibility. And since we're going to be building up our pages, having that little extra flex is going to be very helpful later on. Okay, so I've just cut another piece of the tape, and we're going to peel off the backing again, and we're going to carefully line that up and stick it into the cover of the book. So we're just going to turn our signatures on their side. Going to place the tape down. There we go. Now this is the tricky part, getting the spine lined up with the cover. Have to be as careful as we can and try to get this as centered as possible, because once this is stuck down and in the book, it's going to be really, really hard to adjust later on. So we're going to be very careful with our placement. All right, I think I'm happy with the placement here. So we're just going to press that down, and then I'm going to smooth the tape down. Now I'm also pressing with my fingernails, trying to force that under the spine of the book just a little bit. And I'm just checking to make sure that our flexibility is good and that everything is going to match up. So far, so good. Next, we're going to need a second piece of tape. So we'll just grab that and we'll again measure it out to the book, and then we'll be able to add that to our spine. Okay, carefully peeling that off. We'll go ahead and stick that down. Good. Now I'm going to want to stand the spine all the way up. There we go. And we're going to press that tape in using our fingernails to really smush that in. Okay. And that's laying nice and smooth. Good. So that's the basic foundation. And I'm just double checking to make sure that everything is nice and tight. Well, looks like I need to make a minor adjustment. Not a big deal. The tape can be pulled up at least once or twice, but I don't like messing with it too much. But minor adjustments, not a bad thing. Okay, I think I'm happy with this. It's feeling pretty stable. Smushing that again with my fingernails, just making sure that's really pressed down, checking how it works. All right. Got to get rid of this flap. It is driving me nuts and whacking me every time I try to make an adjustment. So we don't need it. We'll just cut it off. There we go. Get rid of that. And we'll get rid of this one as well. We don't need it. We're just looking for a book. We don't need to make this into a folio. All right. So just finishing cutting that part off. There we go. Much, much better. All right. We've got our basic book. Now we're going to have the fun of adding the interior and exterior cover pieces. So let's take that beautiful cracked leather. I'm going to be measuring and marking where I want to make the cuts, because we're going to be doing this as 2 front covers, and then I want a spine piece. So I need to cut 2 of the covers and then 1 remaining bit for the spine, because I think if we have a slightly raised spine kind of overlapping the cover pieces, it's going to look even more vintagey. So we're just going to go ahead and mark this off, and then I'll need to trim the paper down so that everything is fitting nicely together. All right, just need to find a pencil, and then I can start marking this out. Okay, so we're just marking this out so that I can get the length and width for this, and now we can cut. So the tiny tonic trimmer was the one closest by, so we'll just improvise and use that one to cut our covers with. There we go. It's definitely a little harder to cut with the resist spray on there, but we will make this work. So since the paper is a bit long for the trimmer, I'm just flipping it around and trimming as needed. Okay, flip that. There we go. And we'll get that first page cut. Okay, that's looking good. Let's go ahead and slice. So we've got our first cover. Let's go ahead and get the second one. Just carefully lining things up. And I think we're good. Let's slice that. Okay, and just double checking the size on this. Using my first one as a template to get the mark for the second one. There we go. And the piece that's going to become cut off is going to be perfect for the spine. So we've got all of our pieces. Ooh, that leather turned out even better than I'd hoped. So for attaching these, we're going to be using some collage medium. Just going to put some of that down on here, and then we'll be able to attach our book covers. But before that, just remembered I probably should ink the edges of the book while I still have easy access to them, because I don't want any of the original craft stock showing. That would not look so good. But we've got some vintage photo on here, and I'm just going to go around and we're going to ink the covers. There we go. Just going to grunge that up really nicely. So just working my way around. That's good. And then we'll be able to attach the covers next. Okay, so our inking is done. Now let's add the collage medium so we can glue on the covers. I'm just going to take my fingers and I'm going to smush the glue around. If you don't want to use fingers, then paintbrushes work really well too, or even foam dabbers. So just getting that collage medium spread, and then we can stick down the cover. Looks like we'll need a bit more. So I'll just go ahead and add that. Good. And we'll just continue to spread that out. All right. I think we've got pretty good coverage. So the next thing that we're going to want is the cover. Just going to line this up, and we're going to press this down and hold for maybe 10 to 12 seconds. And that'll just give the glue a chance to start setting up before we flip to the other side. In the meantime, let's put this on fast forward. Now that we have all of our pieces glued together, we've got the basic foundation of the book. Now the next thing I want to do is to grunge up these edges. Those are way too bright for what we're going for. We are going for grunge. So I'm going to be pulling in some vintage photo distress ink, and we're going to ink these up as best we can. So I'm just going to turn that on the side, and we're going to smush right over that. I might open this up as well and do some of the individual pages, but I don't think I really need to too much because we are going to be going in with all sorts of elements to alter this later on. But I just want to get the edges as darkened as we can. All right, let's turn that, work on this side. There we go. That is definitely darkening up very nicely. Okay, and turn. Let's see about this side. So the eventual plan is to do the interior pages as separate videos, and we'll be altering them along the way. I don't know, maybe we'll do one day where we alter all of the pages on the inside and then go into the details on another day. That could be fun. But we'll see. I don't quite have a plan in mind just yet. But for now, this works very good. Okay, so it looks like just a couple of spots are still kind of noticeable. There. All right, so with that done, now I want to work on the interior covers. So we've got our outside. Now the main thing is I need to determine which side is going to be the front. I'm thinking I like this side as the front. So on the inside, I have this linen tape that definitely needs to get covered up. So what I'm planning on doing is embossing a bunch of black cardstock. This is some of the Idea-ology craft stock, and this is another one of the 3D folders by Tim Holtz Idea-ology. Love this one for Halloween. It's got the really cool skulls on here. That'll be fun. So I've gone ahead and embossed 4 pages, and the plan is to put them on here, but I'm going to put down some plain black cardstock first, and then we will add these over the top. But before I do the adding of that, I want to alter these just a little bit with a dash of distress crayon. So I'm coming in with some picket fence, and this is just to kind of cover up some of the areas that have some craft stock showing, and to bring out a little bit more of the detail on here. Okay. So just scribbling that over, smudging that out, and that's going to look really good. Okay, so we're going to do that to all 4 of the pieces, and be right back. So I've cut down a couple sheets of regular cardstock to fit the pages, and we're just going to take these and glue these right in with some collage medium. I'm just double checking to make sure that these fit on both sides. That's good. Okay, so let's grab our collage medium, and we're going to be very generous as I just smush this all over. And then after, we will add in that next layer with the embossing. Okay, so I'm expecting this book to get fairly chunky, but hopefully that's going to help give it that really worn look that I'm looking for. Okay, so just smooshing that right down. Now if you don't want to go in with your fingers, definitely feel free to use a paintbrush or something else, but I always have found that smooshing the glue down with my fingers tends to give me a little bit more control over how thick the coat is, and I think that the end result looks nicer and more even. All right, almost there. Okay, so I'm just going to scrape the rest of that off to the side, and let's take the cardstock and put that right in here. Okay, making sure that everything's lined up. And I'm going to kind of close that. There we go. And I can hold that down while I take care of the other side. Good. Oh, I can't wait to see this one. I'm all done with the basic parts. Okay, so still holding that firm on this side. Let's go ahead and start adding collage medium on this side now. Okay, so just again smushing that on, and then we'll be able to put that next section of paper in. Okay, here we go. Almost there. So we're just going to bring that around and layer that out. Good. All right, so I'm just going to wipe off my fingers and we'll add the next piece of paper. And then we'll just have to wait a bit for this to dry. Estimation on drying time is probably going to be 10 minutes or less. Okay, so we've got our inner book pieces done. Now the next thing that I want to do is to add the embossed elements. So I'm going to take these and bring them onto here. So these are just going to go like that. There we go. And again, we'll go in with more collage medium. So we'll be pretty generous with this. I'm just going to coat the back and then we'll stick it down. Okay, almost done. Right, that should be plenty. I'll just flip that right over and it's going to go here. Just trying to keep that as even as possible. There we go. There. I think that'll be good. Alright, so we're just going to do the same thing to this panel, and then we'll flip the book. So once this is evenly coated, we can stick that down and this side of the book will be done. And just checking that I've got the cover forward that I want. Yeah, it's going to be that one. Whoop. And I need to quickly flip that panel. Otherwise we're going to have an upside down panel. And that would not be good. Alright, just take that, quickly flip it. There we go. Making sure everything's facing the same direction. There. Yeah, that looks nice and even. Okay, so I'll give that a moment to dry and then I'll come back after I've gotten the other side paneled as well. Okay, let's take a look at those end pages. And here they are. I love the texture of these. That is giving this a really fun, creepy look. And we've got the back side done as well. So we are getting close to the end of this alteration for now. The next thing I want to do is to take some gold letters and put them across the top to spell out Grimoire. And we're going to be pulling in one of the brand new From the Vault Halloween sets in order to do this. So let's die cut those and we'll be right back. Here is the die set that we're going to be using to die cut our letters. I love those. Those are so gothic and fun. So this is From the Vault Coffin Box. But we're mostly looking at the letters today. So we've die cut these out of some gorgeous metallic cardstock, and we're going to put Grimoire on the front of our book. So I'm just going to get these letters ready. Start with our G, and we'll go from there. So hopefully my spacing will work out okay. Can't quite remember how much space it's going to take, but these are already sticky backed, so they'll be very easy to move if I do need to move these at all. Before die cutting, I love using double-sided sticky tape because it just makes things so much easier to maneuver around once you've die cut them, because I would not want to try doing glue with these. These are relatively small letters. So having the tape is a great creative option. Okay. I think we're going to be pretty good. 2 more letters after the I. I just can't get over this font. I love it so much. Ooh, I might need to adjust my letters. Yeah, I do. That's okay. We can move things around. Not a very big deal at all. So that's why I wanted to make sure these were going to be sticker-like, in case I needed to slide things around. I don't know what it is, but I'm not very good at figuring out spacing. Spacing to me is one of the hardest things to eyeball. Okay. Almost there. Ooh, it's so metallic. I love that. It really looks kind of like leafing on here, which is cool. All right, am I happy? I think so. Okay, so we have finished up the foundation for our Grimoire book. And now we'll have the fun of filling this with all sorts of fantastical things. So what we did is we used the brand new substrate for the stitch booklet in Tim Holtz Idea-ology, and then we were able to alter this. I added a layer of the cracked leather. This is some of the Ranger distress paper. Then we altered that with distress spray stains, distress crayon, and some distress resist to give it this really cool shine. And to me, that really does look like some worn leather going on here. And on the inside, we altered this with some plain black craft stock, and then I embossed a couple pieces of the black craft stock from Idea-ology and embossed it with the really cool skulls to create these end pages. We've got that beginning and end. And the other thing that we did was to ink up the pages so they're nice and dark. The pages themselves are going to be further altered later on, but for now, this gives us a wonderful starting place. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Crafty Corner for some spooky fun. Until next time, happy crafting!